When Deadpool was first announced, one of my big critiques of him was that as a solo player, he's going to be a rush hero, right? It's going to be a rush strategy in the way that you play him. And after playing him a bunch, yeah, that's what he is as a solo player. Now, people have come back and argued that, well, that's not the case because you can play him entirely differently and kind of not how the game wants you to play him. And yeah, okay. I mean, I guess you can do that too if you really want to, but it's obviously that his strong suit, what makes the most sense for him, is a rush strategy, right? It is what works best for him, and we'll go through that with the cards and whatnot. But yeah, this is gonna be my Deadpool review. Two important things to note, as with all my reviews. Number one, this is just my opinion. If you love Deadpool and I hate him, or if I love him and you hate him, it's all good. Doesn't matter. Perfectly cool. We can all have different opinions about heroes, so it doesn't matter. As far as how I care about the heroes and whatever, the number one thing to me is how fun they are. If the hero's not fun, doesn't matter about the rest of it. It's just not going to be a hero that I enjoy. I know it's very subjective, but just putting that out there. Number two thing is how well like their mechanic works, right? How interesting and unique it is, or how well they implement it. So with that, that's like my number two most important thing. And then finally, number three is how diverse the hero is with the different aspects, right? Does it feel like I'm playing much differently in a protection versus aggression or justice or whatever else? And then theme is kind of like there near the end. So let's go over Deadpool's cards first. Now, this won't be Deadpool and Pool mixed together. We're going to do a separate video for Pool because I got other thoughts about that. But let's dive down and talk about Deadpool's cards first. All right, so down the table, we have Wade Wilson, who has 8 recovery, which is crazy. 6 hand size, 9 hit points. Discard a card from your hand, search your deck for Deadpool event, and add it to your hand. This is what kind of also I think really helps set up his rushing strategy, is that you can look for one of his 2 big attack cards if you don't have it and use it. It's a pretty strong way of doing things. So Deadpool has a 2-2-1 stat line. 5 hand size, 9 hit points. So what's interesting and what is really unique about him is that when you would be defeated, instead set your hit point dial to 1, change your alter ego form, and add 1 acceleration token to the main scheme. And this is the whole mechanic that they're going to lead into, that Deadpool can't actually lose via health, that it's all going to be about acceleration tokens and how they kind of affect the board state. Okay. So we have Cable, who's a 3-1-2-3 stat line. Cable gets +1/+1 thwart and attack for each acceleration token to a maximum of +3, which means that like he can swing for 5 if you had it really maxed out. Now this doesn't really ever happen in solo games, at least not for me. But it is like kind of cool that he could do it. I think for multiplayer, Deadpool would be a lot more interesting. So, but yeah, so that's a fine card, interesting enough. So let's jump into his events. We have Exhausting Personality, 0 cost event. Place 1 acceleration token on the main scheme. Stun and confuse the villain, which I think I did once or twice just to like do it, but it's not great. An exhausted player's identity. That player draws 1 card for each acceleration token on the main scheme. Again, for solo, true solo, there's not really a situation where you want that many acceleration tokens on the main scheme. It can be kind of rough to deal with that. So Exhausting Personality is not really a card that ever really worked well for me, but I could see how it worked better in multiplayer. Meta Knowledge, 1 cost event. When an encounter card is revealed, cancel all the effects on it and discard it. Take 1 damage for each boost icon or star icon on that card's boost area, which is a pretty good card, right? Being able to cancel all the effects of a card and discard it, being able to discard it is really great. And then taking the damage doesn't really hurt us that much, but we are going to be using damage as a resource. So let's talk about some things really fast. Let's start with this card as Fire, which it really is a great artwork card. They did a really good job with this. 3 cost event. After your turn ends, if this card's in your hand, take 1 damage. We need to talk about rules really fast because there's a lot of people that are confused or don't know about this. So, all right. So first thing, we have to understand that during a player turn, right, the actual terminology player turn, you can do all these following things. Each option except change form may be performed as many times as you can do it, whatever. So change form, play, use, trigger, and ask another player to trigger an action, right? Those are all the things you can do on your turn. Then, during the player's phase, each player in turn order takes 1 turn. Excuse me. So you take your turn doing all the things in your player turn, right? And then the other player will go, and then another player, or if it's just solo, there's just you. After each player has taken their turn, the players discard down or draw up to their hand size and ready all the cards that they control. We have to understand that this is part of the player phase is the whole thing, but the turn is you actually doing things on the table. The reason this is important is because this card is Fire, states after your turn ends, if this card is in your hand, take 1 damage. So what this means is not if you draw up and this card's in your hand that you take a damage, right? Because we're past the player turn, we're at the end of the player phase. It's two different things. So it's if you never played this card and you held on to it the entire time, then it would deal damage to you. Not if you draw it up, because that's not a part of your turn anymore. If the card said after after the player phase ends, if this card is in your hand, take 1 damage, then you would take a damage if you're drawing this card up. So it's just an important note. It's a little rules thing. But I see like a lot of people asking that question over on Reddit. So just thought we clarify that. So 3 cost action, deal X damage to enemy, where X is the amount of damage you have sustained. There's a really good strategy with Deadpool using Symbiote Suit, where you get to add plus 10 health. So he really would have 19 health, also adding endurance. So he'd be up to 22 health and get him down to 1 life left. So you would deal 21 damage with this card. Obviously 3 for 21 is a monster card. So it can be very, very strong in the way that it works. Let's skip Yoo-Hoo for a second and switch to Maximum Effort. This is the card to combine with that one, because Maximum Effort is a 0 cost event. Take any amount of damage up to your remaining hit points and deal an equal amount of damage to an enemy. So you could, theoretically, take all your life if you really wanted to. Let's say you were up to, like, again, 22 health with Endurance and Symbiote Suit. You could take 22 damage and flip yourself down, but it would still do this maximum effort. People weren't sure if you could take your full amount. You can. I had to like clarify that with a bunch of people because I wasn't sure about it, but turns out you can. But anyway, even if you just want to drop down to 1 health, do 21 damage with this card, and then you can turn around and do another 21 damage with this card, right? 42 damage off of 2 cards. You can see how strong the rush strategy is right there. I'm just like, okay, get Symbiote Suit into play, get Endurance into play, and just do massive amounts of damage. It's a very, very strong way to play. You can play a longer game if you really want to, but it feels like I'm just building out to that combo. It's so incredibly strong. So anyway, those are the 2 main attack cards. Then we have Yoo-Hoo, who's a 1 cost event. It's a thwart. Take any amount of damage up to your remaining hit points. Remove an equal amount of scheme. Obviously, again, you can remove 20 threat if you really wanted to. Now, you probably won't ever do that amount, but you could do a ton. And you can combine that with this card as fire to remove a bunch of threat. And then whatever your sustained damage is, you'd be able to deal that as damage. This is actually one of my favorite cards for Deadpool. 2 cost support, Chimichanga Truck. After an identity makes a basic recovery, exhaust Chimichanga Truck and ready that identity. And now this could work for true solo, it can work for multiplayer. It's pretty strong. So that's a pretty cool card. Montage is his resource generator. This card generates 1 additional resource for each acceleration token on the main scheme to a maximum of 3, which... okay, I think I used it as a double a lot, but that's it. I never used it for the full 3. All right, so then we have his upgrades. And the one that a lot of people say that kind of balances them out is this one. It ain't over. It's a 1 cost upgrade. Attached to the main scheme, increase the target threat value of attached main scheme by 2 for each acceleration token on it. They're like, this helps balance things out. I see it more maybe for multiplayer. For solo, it keeps the board state, yes, consistent for a bit, as long as it doesn't pop and I lose this card, because there have been times when the main scheme will pop because an advance gets drawn. This card goes away because the main scheme popped, and then I'm done. I just lose. I can't keep up with the scheme then. Or if you draw, if this is your only upgrade and you draw a card off guard or something like that, then you're kind of really messed up. While the card in theory works good, there's a lot of situations where I just got kind of decimated because the card wasn't around or the scheme popped or something crazy happened, which unfortunately happens. All right, so then we have Deadpool's katanas. 2 cost upgrade. There's 2 of them. Exhaust the katana and take 1 damage. Deal 2 damage to an enemy's attack gains piercing. I didn't really love this card except for the piercing part. Like, obviously piercing is strong, so it was more so for that I used it for. But also you can mess around with Arm to the Teeth. And this is an interesting card and how it works with 2 cost upgrade. After you play Arm to the Teeth, search your collection for 1 weapon upgraded from any aspect and attach it here face down. Then you can exhaust Arm to the Teeth, swap that card here with a weapon upgrade you control. It's a way you put the katana in, and then you can get like Sonic Rifle or whatever, right? So you could exhaust the katana, use it, put Sonic Rifle in. Sonic Rifle would not come in exhausted. It would come in with all of its counters and unexhausted. So it is a way to, like, if you wanted to mess around with the weapon build, you could do that for sure. It's something I tried around a little bit. It wasn't like my favorite thing in the world, but it's definitely something you could do if that's like what you're into. Absolutely, you can do it. So anyway, that's his cards. Then we have his obligation, which is the Merc with the Mouth. Exhaust each ally you control. Allies you control cannot ready. Other players cannot resolve card or player card abilities during your turn. After the player phase ends, if you have not talked this phase, discard this card. Okay, like I know Spider Ham had like meme whatever, like you had to do certain things on the table, but like it wasn't really forced. This like you actually have to like not talk because that's gonna dictate, how long this card stays out. So if you cheated, you just, just discard the next turn, I guess, or not talk or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that obligation at all. But then we have his Nemesis set, which isn't too bad. Butler is a 2/1/3 stat line. When Butler schemes, place the threat on involuntary procedures if able. So let's look at that card, which comes in with 6. And then after Deadpool takes any amount of damage, place 1 threat here. Then if there are 10 or more threat here, remove this card from the game. Like, okay. Like, just have him take damage then. Like, I don't understand why him taking 4 damage gets rid of this. Like there's no penalty. Like, just play one of your cards that takes damage from you and use the 4 just so that you can get rid of this card so you don't get an extra back card. Like, it's a really weird card. And the fact that Butler schemes and places threat on, like I feel like he should be taking threat off of it then. Like that would have been the more interesting design. It's a really weird design. I don't understand why this is a bad thing. Like this is fine, right? This is not hard to deal with. And especially for Deadpool that can do so much damage. Like it would have been more interesting if like Deadpool couldn't take damage or something like that, right? Like it's weird. I don't understand it. I guess the argument is with this, tabula rasa is 16, attached to your identity, treat your identity's printed text boxes that are blank, except for traits. Like that hurts a little bit. Like that is a way to kill him and whatever. But like this, then I should feel like should work with these 2 cards. Like it's very, very weird. So you would spend 2 mental resources to discard this card and alter ego. Like, okay. And then we have 2 mutated soldiers, a 1/2/5 stat line. They both come with tough. After mutated soldier activates, heal all damage from it, which is, it can be rough, right? That is pretty rough. So you have to do the 5 damage, which is something. It's just, I don't understand the concept of this card and why this is supposed to be difficult. Like it's not. This is really easy to get through, and Butler is really easy to get through. So I don't understand why, especially for a hero that can output so much damage. And there's I don't know. It's a really weird thing. I don't understand what they're trying to do there. It feels like it would have been so much more interesting if like you couldn't take damage as a resource or like it was limited somehow or something. But that's just what it is. So anyway, those are all of his cards. Let's pop back up and talk about my opinions of Deadpool. All right, so I don't know the thought process with how they created Deadpool. Right? I don't know what they were trying to go for. My gut tells me that they were going for theme over everything else. That they wanted to be very thematic and really kind of stand out in that sense. And if that's the case, I feel like the theme of Deadpool of, yeah, he takes damage but can't ever die, and it's kind of a mass chaos, and there's chaos everywhere on the board, and the board stays on fire, and he's just not really trying to put it out. He's just trying to deal with it. Like I think they hit that. I think they did a really good job of that. I think his life as a resource again, like, because the 3rd time we've seen it in the past 2 waves. I'm a little tired of it, but it's fine, right? It's a different way of doing it, which is fine. And the fact that he doesn't die is an interesting mechanic. It's cool how they did it, right? That's all good. The problem is one, I feel like no matter what aspect I play, like I play him on Justice, and it's a little bit easier to control the main scheme so that it doesn't pop as easily, and putting the acceleration tokens on isn't as bad. But I'm still just trying to line up maximum effort, and this card is on fire. Like that's still the strategy at the end of the day, is to line up those 2 things or as best as I can, and then just, kind of get hit in the face and whatever. So that's still like the thing I'm doing. If I was in aggression, still the thing I'm doing. I'm just trying to do it a bit faster because I have more attack cards in there to deal more damage, right? Protection, I never really got him to work great in protection because you want him to take damage. So like the idea of him not taking damage feels weird. So protection never worked great for me, and leadership's leadership. So it was like a little bit different, but it wasn't a ton different. Again, it felt like I was just trying to line up for those 2 cards, which again, I guess you can make that argument for anyone that you're trying to line up your big swings at the end. And if that's your argument, that's fair. My biggest issue with Deadpool, my number one thing overall is, am I having fun playing him? It was a chore to play 15 games of Deadpool. I'm gonna be completely honest. I enjoyed the first couple because I was like, okay, this is new and unique and whatever. And then I got pretty bored of it pretty fast. It's obvious that for true solo, you want to rush him and just line up maximum effort, and this card is on fire. with symbiote suit and or endurance and do massive amounts of damage and just plow through the villain, right? That's what you want to do. And that's what you see with a lot of people talking about Deadpool right now is, oh, he can do like 50 damage in one turn or 70 damage or what. Like he can, yeah, he can do crazy amounts of damage. Okay. Like, and once I've done that once or twice and that's the whole goal, like it gets kind of boring after that. And that's my biggest problem is that I'm just not having fun playing him. I'm not enjoying my time. I feel like he is a mess on the board state. I feel like that normally I'm going against the main scheme and the villain. I feel like now I'm going against the main scheme, the villain, and Deadpool, who's messing up the board, and I'm trying to fix the problem, right? And again, I think thematically, if they were going for mass chaos, they nailed it, right? And if theme is really important to you, then this is going to be a great deck for you because I think it does nail that theme. I think if you're going into this wanting chaos, wanting it to be just insane and all over the place, yeah, I think it works really well. And I think it's good. And I think it'll be a good fit for you. For me, though, it's just not. It's just not a good fit. It's not enjoyable. As true solo, again, the rush strategy is the way to go. Even with multiplayer, it seems like you just want to build him out to do those massive swings, and that's what you're basically gearing up for. I have seen people argue that multiplayer is a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable, which maybe is. Maybe it'd be fun to try that some more in multiplayer. But yeah, other than that, I'm putting acceleration tokens on to make it harder for myself. I'm fighting myself constantly and then saving up for a big swing. And it's just like, okay. Like again, I don't mind that a couple times. He's just not a hero that I love. And I don't think it's great. So that's been my biggest issue with him. Which, I know some people are gonna have a problem with because he seems to be very divisive right now. That there is a large part of the community that seems to really love him and another large part that seems to really hate him. There's not a lot in between, it turns out. I also don't think it helps with him coming with the pool aspect. We'll get into the pool aspect in the next video, which is a whole nother thing. I think that actually kind of hinders him a little bit in the way he's perceived because I do think Justice, when I play him Justice, it's not terrible. I do think it's doable. And then again, regression, you're kind of getting shoved into the rushing side of things. So I think Justice has been my favorite way to play him. But again, the entire time I'm playing him, I'm just like, okay, like maybe it's just because we've done life as a resource so many times recently that I'm just kind of over that. Maybe the idea of not dying like is cool at first, but then after that it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. So it's just kind of whatever at that point. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't really put my finger on it completely. And then his back cards really aren't bad. It's really weird. It's really weird. And especially for obviously he is super strong. I think damage output wise, he's the best, arguably the best. So it's weird that they would make his nemesis and stuff so weak. I don't really understand that part of it, but that's fine. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on Deadpool. Yeah, again, I'll pull him out now and again, whatever. But every single time I was playing him, I wasn't enjoying it. And the whole weapon idea was a little more interesting of like kind of messing around with that and doing things with that. I think that was fun. Chimichanga Truck is a great card to ready up after you heal all the way on 8 recovery. It's pretty nice. I mean, it's pretty good in that sense. But yeah, exhausting personality. I was never actively trying to put an acceleration token on because I just did not want to do that. Meta knowledge was good when I happened to have it for that one turn where I did draw a card that made sense. Like, yeah, it was fine. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Deadpool. Yeah, I know people are going to be upset or love it because again, it's so polarizing. But it's just he was a miss for me. He was a miss for me, unfortunately. So I don't regret owning it. And like I said, if you care about theme and care about that Deadpool shenanigan mass chaos, I think this is a perfect deck for you. And I do think they nailed it. And if that's what the design was going for, was the theme above all else, I think they nailed it. I really do. And again, there's gonna be people that think that this style is really fun as well. Cool. Like that's awesome. That is really cool and that's really fun. I'm just not one of those people is all. So anyway, hopefully if you made it to the end of this video, you do me a huge favor, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you like, what you don't like. Maybe you're middle of the road. If you're middle of the road, I kind of want to hear that because I feel like there's not many middle of the road people. There's lovers or haters and that's it. It seems like. So anyway, let me know your thoughts and I appreciate you watching the video and I'll see you all next time.